Hi, everybody, and welcome to our final general body meeting. This meeting is going to reference preparing for an interview. Preparing for an interview overall is a physical and a mental game. You don't ever want to psych yourself out before going in, so I added this cute, not so little quote to start us off. Anybody want to read this off for me? That's okay. I'll read it.
Oh, I'll read it if you want.
Angela, I would love for you to read it.
Knowledge is the antidote to fear. Knowledge, use, and reason, with its higher aids. The child is as much in danger from a staircase, or the fire grate, or a bathtub, or a cat, as the soldier from a cannon or an ambush. Each surmounts the fear as fast as he precisely understands the peril and learns the means of resistance. Each is liable to panic, which is exactly the terror of ignorance surrendered to the imagination. Knowledge is the encourager, knowledge that takes fear out of the heart, knowledge and use, which is knowledge in practice. They can conquer who believe they can. It is he who has done the deed once who does not shrink from attempting it again.
Snaps. Thank you
I'm
so much.
not a performance poet, so that was a little rough.
I appreciate you nonetheless.
Oh, thanks.
What I really want everybody to get out of this quote is knowledge is the antidote to fear, which is this first highlighted section. Panic is the terror of ignorance surrendered to the imagination. And it is he who had done the deed once who does not shrink from attempting it again. Overall, if you prepare and gain the knowledge before going into something, you will have much more confidence going into that thing. But this last section here really highlights you won't only ever have one interview in your life. If you fail by lack of getting the job, then it's just one failure for a stepping stone to your future. Don't ever feel completely discouraged and always try learning from what you've done. Woo! I got excited. All right, so going over today's meeting, the introduction, I'm going to have some general announcements for the club. The content of the PowerPoint is going to be some interview basics, presenting yourself, heck yeahs and absolutely nots. And then we're going to conclude with a very slow paced and relaxed quote unquote group interview. That's not really a group interview, but you'll see when we get there. So next slide, some announcements. John or Caitlin, did you guys want to go over some of the announcements here for me?
I could go over them. Yeah. All right. So we have our grad night as a last meeting of the semester. This is our last general body meeting, but the grad night is going to be our last just casual meeting where we're going to get together, celebrate our graduating members and leaders, and just have one big send off for everyone. We're going to be playing some games, have a great time. And that date is to be determined, but we're looking at the first week in May right now, sometime right after finals and all that good stuff. And then next up, we have a membership survey that's about to come out. That is, or I mean, a membership survey that has been out and it closes today, actually. And if you are a member of FTC, or even if you've just attended any of our meetings, if you have some feedback that you'd like to give about the club, feel free to take 5-10 minutes to complete that. And if you do, by the end of today, you enter into a raffle to win a free license of Snagit, a photo editing tool, which is $30 value. So if you got any feedback to give us, feel free to take that survey. I'm going to be posting the link. And it's just really useful to get any of your feedback and help us improve our club. And finally, we have a year in review survey, which we're just releasing. And we're just looking for everybody to tell us how their year has been, both in and out of school, just how the past year has treated them, just how they feel with this past year in review. We're looking to get an FTC year in review article where we just highlight some quotes and experiences of our members, see how the school year has treated them, and yeah, just put it together into a great article. And so that is opening as well. And I'll be posting the link right now in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so to kick off the actual content, interview prep. So what do I do before I have my interview? And I don't mean 5 to 10 minutes before, because that is an absolute recipe for panicking. And not everybody does that well under pressure. So, what you really want to do is come prepared with some research. That research doesn't have to be a 10-page paper on why you want to work for this company, but you definitely should look some things up, like the job description that you're applying for, the company that you're applying for, and the service or product sold. These are things that should generally be information open to the public, and it's not questions you want to ask while you're in the interview. That shows that you didn't take the time to research what you're really applying for, and it doesn't make the interview feel very confident for your favor. Outside of research, you want to come prepared with a little bit of presentation. So practice your body language and some answers to common questions. By body language, I don't mean you need to be doing any weird jumping jacks or anything, but try not to cross your arms, keep your shoulders back. You want to give a good impression without feeling standoffish from the interviewer. Answers to common questions. We're going to go over some of those questions in this PowerPoint presentation today, but there are loads of resources out there that list hundreds and hundreds of questions to ask your interviewer, questions that your interviewer will ask you, and your answer is going to be subjective, but again, tons of resources for tips on how to answer these questions. Presenting yourself. So this is going to be something that is happening during the interview. You are essentially talking to the person that may or may not hire you. So you want to have a good interaction with them. And you're going to be both a sight and a sound for them, which means you need to work on your physical appearance as well as what's coming out of your mouth. So your physical appearance, just take care of yourself. I mean, if you have to sprint from one side of the town to the other and you don't have time to take a shower once you get there, that's okay. That's something that's unavoidable. But you should be wearing something professional looking. You should be look put together overall. Today's day and age is a little weird because with Zoom interviews, you can absolutely not wear pants to an interview and they'd never know. But you don't want to volunteer that information. Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. That doesn't mean you have to be dressed in a tuxedo or a head to toe suit, but definitely a button up, maybe some nice slacks, something that makes you look professional. And then we're going to come back to this thing on body language. Again, the biggest thing is probably not to cross your arms and just to interact very nice, for lack of a better word, with your interviewer. Moving on to the sound that you're presenting to the interviewer, you want to be polite. You don't want to be rude to somebody that may or may not hire you. They may or may not be the big boss. They could just be the hiring manager. Regardless of what it is, this is a possible team that you will work for. So you want to be very polite. Everything you say should be constructive to your point. So you don't want to go off on a tangent that has nothing to do with why you should be hired, unless they ask for a personal anecdote. But you really want to redirect everything to why you're the best fit for the job. And that will be subjective. So there's not a script to really go into. It's more so back to the research and practicing what you think you're going to say for this interview. So we got some heck yes, and then some absolutely nots. So we're going to go over the heck yes first. And one of these heck yes is ask questions. You don't want to be a blank board staring at your interviewer with wide eyes. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I have wide eyes going into every interview because I'm always terrified, but it always goes back to preparing for what you're going into. So you want to ask some specific and general questions. The specific questions will reference the research that you did earlier on prior to your interview. So maybe there was something that listed sales numbers or a new product. Maybe you want to ask how that product is affecting the team, what they're doing moving forward with it, just something more specific to the job itself. I have an example here. As a list position for said company, what is expected of me my first day, week, and month? With this question, it shows that you have initiative, you're being realistic about what you're going into, and you're excited for the work. This looks really good from an interviewer's perspective, and it's a simple question that really just lets you know what's going on. But that being said, you don't want to ask it and just cover your ears. You want to ask it and you want to be very attentive to what's happening. So really consider, is this right for me? Am I going to be happy doing this? Is this a good stepping stone? Outside of some specific questions, there are some more general questions you can ask. I suggest that you don't ask the general questions like, oh, what does the company do? Oh, this, that. It's stuff that you can find as general information and public knowledge. You shouldn't really be asking about it when you're already there, unless you want to reiterate a certain point about it. Some of these general questions is, what is the hardest aspect of your job? So that shows, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing too. How can we help each other? We also have, what is your favorite part about working for said company? That shows that you have an interest in that specific company's culture. Does the company participate in any team building exercises throughout the year? So some people might be really attentive to teamwork and team building exercises, and that might be something you're looking for in a company. Just because the company you're interviewing for doesn't do that as a stepping stone doesn't mean it's completely out of the door, but you should absolutely check. It helps you seem more interested and get you a better idea of what you're going into. We also have, what are 3 words you would use to describe the company? This is often a question that interviewers will ask you about yourself. So it's an interesting mirror of that same question back for your interviewer. Moving on to some absolutely nots. Tardiness. Tardiness, my guys, tardiness. You don't want to be late to an interview. It doesn't reflect good upon you. But if there's absolutely no way you can avoid it, call ahead. You don't want to just be a no call, no show because it's rude to the employer and harmful to your reputation as a professional. It shows that you don't respect your own time or the company's time. And sometimes things are unavoidable. Say you have to pick your child up from daycare or XYZ. We're all going to face a lot of personal problems, but the core root of any of it is communication. You really want to communicate with what's going on. We also have, once you're there, another absolutely not is defensiveness. It indicates you're hard to work with and don't respect the hierarchy of power. Another defensive absolutely not is don't ask anything too personal. You're both there to ask questions and to be asked questions, but you don't want to start company gossip for a job you haven't even gotten into. I was at an STC meeting the other week, and one of the professionals there said that she had gotten asked about her tattoo in an interview. And while, especially in the younger culture, tattoos they're just coming up more and more. Some people have very close meanings to their tattoos. So what may seem like a non-inconspicuous question to you and me, this woman really took it as, I don't want this person asking, this is already a red flag. So part of it will be not asking too personal of questions and really feeling out your interviewer. That's why it's important to come prepared with some questions about the company itself. And it's all about pre-planning. So from these absolutely nots, we will move on to types of interviews. There are multiple types of interviews, and sometimes you'll be told what type you're going to go into, and other times you won't. So one of these interviews is a one-on-one interview. This is what people usually think of when they hear the word interview, and it's really great because it allows you to have some one-on-one time with the person who's interviewing you, ask them, not personal questions, but ask them some specific questions that they have the time for and whatnot. We also have a panel interview. So this will be when there are multiple interviewers and just you. This can be very intimidating, especially because they will all know each other and you're just walking in like, hi, please hire me. It can be very intimidating, but these are people you could possibly be working with. So it's important to remain calm, ask questions, and be respectful. Those are points I'm going to continue to iterate throughout this. We also have a group interview. So that means that there is one interviewer and multiple interviewees. This helps companies save a lot of time and resources, and it also shows how you interact with a group. This will be important, especially for people who are working on teams, whether it be a writing team or if you're just one part of the overall component, which you usually are. So even if you have some work that's by yourself, it's always good to work well with others. Finally, we have a mixed mode interview. This is less common, but it could be a combination of having multiple interviewers, multiple interviewees, or any hybrid form of an interview. Some companies will try to get like quote unquote hip and do their own thing. So it can be intimidating not knowing what you're going into. That's why it all goes back to your research and why it's so important to know what you're doing. Moving on from types of interviews, how not to freak the heck out. That's a lot of information, and I didn't even give you guys half the information that you can find out on the web. There's a lot to think about, but the thing is trying not to overthink. A lot of us deal with mental health problems and anxiety, and you don't want to have a freak out in the middle of the interview, because then you're going to be like, oh, my freak out's what cost me it. It's the end of the world. I'm so sad. It's a lot. It's a lot to think about, guys. So some things that work for me personally are meditation. And that doesn't mean you have to be cross-legged on a cliff in a waterfall in the middle of nowhere thinking some Zen thoughts to yourself. That's not exactly what meditation is. It's really just aligning your thoughts. So trying to calm all the hecticness in your head. And that can be through breath work, yoga, back to this body language thing. But for a lot of people, it's just practice. Practice makes perfect. So that can be you practicing questions and answers in the mirror so you can see your body language, how you're responding to things, or you can do mock interviews with a friend. Write some questions out for them to ask you and just really go off of each other. Sometimes having a community really helps. Does anybody here have any things that they do when they're preparing for an interview? Something that I haven't really mentioned on the slide?
Sometimes, well, I did this one time. I reached out to my one friend who is like an intern coordinator. So she's interviewed hundreds of people. And I had her give me like the hardest questions that she has, which are, she's a pretty relaxed person. So they weren't like extremely difficult questions, but you know, like what's the last task that really energized you and what drained you, just really made me start critically thinking about my experiences and how I wanted to present them. So I would say linking up with a friend who maybe has some interview or experience and doing a mock interview, really exactly what we're doing here. So, but with a friend maybe, so it's a little easier, especially if they have some good experience conducting interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Angela. And practicing with a friend makes it that much easier whenever you're going into an interview. Like you're still going to respect the interviewer, but it might be a little easier because it's something you partially already went through.
Yeah. I'm just going to mention one, and this one's probably going to sound a little berserk, but set a timer for like 3 minutes and just come up with the worst possible situation that could possibly happen. Get it out of your head and then do breath work after and calm your heart rate back down, and you'll probably be a lot calmer.
Cool. I actually like that a lot. Only slightly berserk. All right. So if nobody else has anything they want to add, go ahead and move on from this guy to the group interview. My original hope was that I'd be able to do an interview where I made everybody interact, but over Zoom, that's kind of hard, especially when we don't know what our numbers are going to be. So this is more of a relaxed interaction. I have some questions listed here with a little bit of talking points off of them. So if anybody has, oh, this is a great answer and wants to share or have any characteristics that they want to share as we go through this, feel free to interrupt me, chime in, do your thing. So we're going to start with, how would you describe yourself? This question evaluates the level of self-perception you have, and it makes it personal while still aiming towards your goals. So this goes back to, how would you describe yourself while you're wanting to get this interview? Anybody have any characteristics that they think would sound really good going into any interview?
Maybe describing yourself as a good team player, saying that you're respectful and able to communicate well with others, especially under pressure.
Great points.
You could also mention like enjoying working in groups, working with schedules, keeping things organized, stuff like that.
Another couple could be flexibility and adaptability. I feel like those could be good. In a recent interview I had for L3 Harris, that was one of the things that ended up being important that they were looking for, because especially in their company, they do a lot of things either on the hardware or software side. So they wanted to know if I was flexible. Like, so whether you prefer hardware or software, do you feel like you're flexible? Would you be willing to learn? So I feel like flexibility, adaptability, and like willingness to learn on the job, those sound good too.
Great point, John. Something else when you're going into the interview is looking over the job description again, because sometimes the job description will have characteristics listed that they're looking for. And you don't want to lie to the interviewer, but maybe come prepared with some characteristics that are listed there and then some stories that'll help back you up. Moving on to the next question. What interests you in our company? So this is really, have you done any research or preparation for the interview? Will this be a good fit? And an instinct reaction is, what interests you in our company? Oh, a job. I want a job. Please give me a job. Don't say that. Do not say that at all. You really want to do some research as to why you're really applying for this company as opposed to any other company you could get a job for. Does anybody here have like a dream company that they would love to work for?
For me, it's any of the big publishers. So one would be Penguin Random House.
Is there anything that really interests you in that company specifically, or is it just, oh, I want to work for one of the publishers?
Ooh, a better example would probably be Grove Atlantic as a publisher, because they focus a lot on literary fiction specifically. So I would love all the content, or all the, I guess I can call it content, that they would be publishing. And then they also are a bit smaller than Penguin Random. I mean, they're a mid-sized publisher, and Penguin Random House is, I think they're like the #1 North American publisher. So they're a bit smaller, meaning they would have more a better workload. They also care more about their authors. I think they're better at publishing diverse voices than the bigger publishers are. So, shifting to Grove Atlantic, that would be what specifically draws me to that publisher. The other, going to Penguin Random House, that would just be prestigious.
Beautiful answer, dude.
Thank you.
Professional dude. But that's exactly it. You want to list anything that goes along with your morals. This is something that's going to go down to your roots and really why you want to be there. Or if you have any specializations of why you'd be a good fit for that company, that'd be a beautiful opportunity to throw those in there. So finally, I guess we'll go over, describe a difficult situation and how you handle it. So this is going to be very subjective to your experience, because not all of us will have gone through the exact same difficult situation in our handling of it. But what this question is really asking you is, are you capable? You're not always going to have somebody holding your hand, but you want to be able to move forward with your own autonomy every now and then. I believe I saw an example somewhere on the internet, and it had said that one of their bosses had gone away on her first day of vacation. They had a client call and threatened to leave unless they had XYZ. And the person in that position was able to convince the client to stay without having to really contact the boss. Now, as recent graduates, we're not going to have anything that elaborate, but you want to have something prepared as to why you're capable and why you're a good fit. Does anybody have any school or work things that they could relate to this?
I feel like a lot of times, even when it comes to school, maybe like group project experiences could be useful, or also stories of just perseverance despite difficult times, but managing to, get through classes and get through school. So yeah, I feel like personal testimonies would be good. It kind of shows more about your character, and also just dealing with dealing with difficult team situations. I feel like that's useful because it also translates into the workplace sometimes.
I like to use like personal, like my restaurant experience. So like I'll give examples of like me working on a team and doing well with that. And also I was like a lead hostess as at one of my restaurants. So I'll use that experience of leading a team as well.
Absolutely. As a bartender, that's something that I have included in my resume too. Just, hey, I have capabilities of leaving a team or leaving, that's not what you want to say, of leading a team, and then maybe throw in some personal anecdotes on how you were able to do that. Perfect. Well, I believe this is one of the last slides of this guy. I listed some additional resources. Indeed.com. I didn't provide all of the links for Indeed because they have numerous upon millions upon any other unquantifiable number of resources. They're great if you want to find questions for an interview, asking your interviewer. They have some resume information on there as well. Glassdoor.com is another great resource. I don't have it listed here, but resume.com. There are plenty of resources available online that you can just go through and, oh, how would I answer this question? Or, oh, should I not ask this question? But it's numerous resources on that for you. And to conclude, I plugged all of our communication stuff because we want to stay connected with you guys over the summer and all of the other things. John, would you be able to insert these links to the chat for anybody who wants to get connected with us?
Yeah, sure thing. I'll have them posted.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions about this PowerPoint presentation today?
Not a question, just a comment. Great job, Claire. Very informative. Really helpful.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. This is probably like the most successful like club meeting that I've been to. Like you did a really good job organizing and engaging me, who I'm not even in this club. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But my head's getting bigger by the moment.
I agree. You did a great job.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. And I really appreciate your participation. Thank you for not making me look at myself on a screen with no feedback.
Yeah, sorry, you still do have to look just at yourself, but we're here. We're watching you as well.
I just have the PowerPoint, so it's okay. I can just
True, that helps.
Screen sharing and all the wonderful capabilities. But again, I really appreciate you guys. If you're not connected with our social media stuff, try to get in there. We're getting some great resources and publishing opportunities out there. And John, if you haven't stopped the recording, I think this would be a wonderful point too.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so everyone who's watching, thank you for tuning in. We hope it was informative.